Who's that person? We're all, we have public.
Okay.
The December 12th special meeting of the Granada Sanitary District Board of Directors is reconvened. Prior to this, we had closed session.
No reportable action is taken in closed session.
And so we did roll call at the beginning of closed session. Or any?
I think it'd be good to do it again because the
All right,
timer's
yeah.
now rolling.
Let's do a roll call again on camera.
President Leonard Warren.
Here.
Vice President Malcolm Clark.
Here.
Secretary Rick Lemon.
Here.
We do not currently have a treasurer. Director Jim Blanchard.
Here.
And we have our new director David Stevens.
Here.
And the table is our general manager Chuck Duffy and our legal counsel John Whitmer and the administrator Julia Camito.
Thank you. And Jonathan had already reported out that no reportable action was taken in closed session.
Right.
General public participation, communications from the public and members of the district board and district staff concerning matters not on the agenda. Do we have anyone who would like to make any non-agenda comments? Hearing none, we have item 1, presentation of certificates of election and administration of the oath of office by the Honorable Supervisor Don Horsley to elected board members.
Yeah, let me just go. Great, thank you.
Chuck.
Camera. Mrs. Leonard. And I was framed this and put it on the wall.
Supervisor Horsley, this is my 5th one, counting Midcoast Council, so I don't have enough wall space.
Well, yeah, maybe in your garage or something, but David, you're going to have to have you sign this.
Okay.
Others have done this in the past. So, what I'm going to have you do, of the 3 of you, David, Rick, and Leonard, please stand. You're going to, I would suggest we go right over here in the center. And I'm going to have you raise your right hand, and I'm going to say "I" and repeat. And you're going to repeat your name after we say "I." Okay, so raise your right hand. I. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations, you are now sworn in. Thank you. So I might just make a quick comment. First of all, I'm really honored to be here this evening and to swear in all the members. And I know that Granada Sanitary District, I just want to commend your president, the presentation that he made to the Board of Supervisors, Dr. Lafko, that is. I thought was very helpful, insightful, and very erudite. He had lots to say, and I thought it was very convincing. So look forward to working with all of you in the future.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item 2, election of 2014 district board officers. So generally this is done president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer in that order. Now typically we've done 2-year officer terms, but there's considerations now. what I would like to do is open nominations for board president, and I would like to nominate our vice president, Matthew Clark, to be the board president for this year.
Legal?
Yes. You won't get out
Can't
that
get out.
easily, right? You could try.
Okay.
Are there any further nominations?
Well, if you need a second, I'll second it.
Well, nominations don't require a second. Do we need do we need a motion to close nominations, or can I just say hearing no further?
You can just say they're closed after asking if there are other nominations.
Okay. Any further nominations?
So I'd be interested in running for treasurer if that's an open position. No one else is looking at it.
Well, we just go one.
We'll go
through
yeah,
one at a
we'll go
time.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right, hearing no further nominations for president, I'll close the nominations and invite a motion to elect Matthew Clark by unanimous acclamation. Is there such a motion?
I'll move so.
Is there a second?
Yes.
So moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There you go.
I'll have to go to the next nomination?
Vice president.
I gotta change your tags, please. Camera.
What does our policy state about the switch? Can we change it?
Say what?
The switching of the guard here? No.
Change what?
Doesn't ring a bell. One of my districts, we changed it so the board president took office at the January meeting.
CCWD does something sort of like that, but they actually have it as the last agenda item at the preceding meeting.
According to district bylaws, they take their positions.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
All right, thank you. I will open nominations for vice president, and I'm going to nominate Director Warren for vice president. Do you accept that?
Sure.
Do I hear any other nominations? Can we get a motion for
Well,
unanimity?
declare nominations closed.
Oh, that's right. All right, they're closed.
I so move. Unanimous consent again.
Yes. Yes, I would ask for unanimous consent.
Yes.
Confirm Director Warren as vice president. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right.
Secretary.
Secretary, secretary's next. I will now open the nominations for the position of board secretary. Do we have a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Jim here to get him kind of warmed up into things too. That's kind of you don't have to like take minutes.
I understood.
It's signing a few official documents.
I accept. Okay.
Do I hear any other nominations? Then the nominations are closed, and I'll again ask for unanimous consent.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And now we'll open the nomination for treasurer. Do I hear any nominations?
We had an eager volunteer, so I'll nominate David.
All right.
Does that mean that you don't want to do it?
I nominated David.
You know,
Nominate him.
I
You can
actually,
tell who the new board members are and who
I actually managed to get through about 10 years on this board without ever having been treasurer. That was the one thing that I didn't want.
I've done it several times. I think we should spread that joy out.
I've done it, it's fun. Do we have any other nominations?
Apparently not.
Apparently not. I therefore close the nominations, and I will ask again for a motion for unanimous consent.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's it. Okay.
Okay. Congratulations. We're good? Okay.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Okay.
Note that our audience,
Oh, here's our.
Our audience,
our audience now consists of two former directors.
There you go.
All right.
So
soon to be council.
I would like to point out that we have staff on the ball, and our new director has a nameplate.
You'll be signing checks by the end of the day.
Well, actually,
Jim
not.
needs to get a secretary.
No, the SIG cards have to be done.
Oh, there.
Yeah, right.
Oh, we need to get. Yeah, we got basically.
He's talking about signature cards.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't have those.
Item 3.
All right, we'll move to agenda item 3, consideration of resolution appointing representatives and alternate to the Sewer Authority Midco Side Board of Directors.
Well, every year I make the same speech saying continuity is important, and I would certainly like to continue on the SAM board, and I think Matthew's doing a great job, so unless he wants to pawn it off back to Rick, or unless...
Well, my question was, has Matthew grown tired? We had sort of a agreement.
That.
It wasn't signed in blood, I remember. So.
Yes.
So do you want to pawn
Are
it?
you considering?
I mean, I would come back per our official agreement, but if you're having fun, I don't want to.
Well, having just had the awesome responsibility of president thrust upon me, maybe I should let you go back to Sam, and I'll be the alternate again.
I can do that.
Okay, so I move that the district appoints as its regular SAM representatives, Director Lohman, Director Warren, and designates as its alternate Director Clark.
So we have a resolution that carries that out, so we'll fill in the resolution accordingly, but I'm asking the board to adopt the resolution because the SAM JPA requires a resolution.
Okay, so my motion was that we approve the resolution, filling in the blanks as I stated.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Discussion? We have that.
Just in case you don't know, we both have to refill out Form 700s again.
Rick, is there a requirement that we have to wear the same colored shirt?
Yes. It's unified on SAM.
It has to be prison chambray, right? All right. Hearing no discussion, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I think that's... Pardon?
I did.
I take it there were none opposed?
No, it's you guys. Since
this
I've already had it written.
That's a pretty official, important action for Sam. I just want to make sure that it was very clear there was a majority vote in favor of the resolution.
The vote was unanimous, no one abstained either. Agenda item number 4 is consideration of appointing a representative of the local chapter of California Special Districts Association. And at this point, I think how many years has Director Lohman been on?
I'm still president of the chapter.
That's because he's refusing to put elections on the agenda.
Well, they keep saying no. I kept saying we do it. I talked to Iris about the processes. And we got reelected several times when you weren't actually there. So
They figured he's doing a good job. Let's not rock the boat.
So may we assume that you would like to continue?
I'd volunteer to do that because I think it's...
So who'd like to make a motion to doing that?
I'm never clear on why we actually do this, because I don't think they require any official designation of representatives to the chapter, do they?
It's interesting. If it doesn't change...
I think this has really been somehow mixed up with
Well,
Well, what happens
With
then is
item
it's
5.
boilerplate from the year before and the year before. So it
Right,
doesn't happen.
but I think that this has somehow been confused with the thing that's here as item
Right.
5. But, if we want to do a motion, I would certainly,
Because item 5, the president is the official.
no, that's right. Yeah, oh, yeah, item 5, right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I think it's okay to keep doing this,
All right, so
Well, it's on the agenda.
According to our bylaws, the board or the president have the authority to appoint.
that's item,
That's CSD, to appoint. So we do we need a resolution? No.
No,
No.
but I would recommend a motion just.
all right, so I move that we continue to have Director Lohman represent the district at the local CSDA chapter.
I second that. Second.
Any discussion? I got it. All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And Rick, the appointed representative may also select an alternate to attend the CSDA meetings if he or she is unable to attend. Would you like to do that at this time or ad hoc if
No,
needed?
it's just to see who's, I've been healthy for 4 years, but if I travel occasionally, and we'll just find somebody.
I go to most of the meetings, but there's never been any official designation of me speaking for the district.
We don't do many big voting things there.
When do they meet?
It's quarterly, and it's generally the first Tuesday. It's over in Redwood City. I can get you an agenda.
First Tuesday?
First Tuesday, the only one it isn't of that quarter was November quarter, because that's election day. So they bump it to the prior.
Well, that would be not the first Tuesday.
No, it's every quarter, but not. It's the first Tuesday of the month.
So are you saying it's the second month of each quarter, the first Tuesday of the second month?
It's November and February, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, so yeah.
The first Tuesday of the second month of the quarter.
Right.
Okay, agenda item number 5, consideration of appointing alternates to the LAFCO Independent Selection Committee.
Now, if the board president, and the state law designates the board president of each district is the voting member of the Independent Special District Selection Committee. And it also specifies that if the board president is unable to attend, that another director can be there, but I believe has to have a signed letter from the board president.
Because I think in this case, Matthew is the official representative, and then if they ever have public business, and he'll either go, or if he can't go, then he'll appoint somebody.
Right. Now, there will be a meeting in January, I believe. Yes, they have to elect.
Nothing's really come up yet. They haven't figured that out.
There's going to be a meeting early in the year. I don't know exactly when, but yes, because one of the
Nothing's come out officially yet on any real elections yet. So we're waiting for Martha to come out and do that.
Okay.
She'll be in touch with Matthew for anything that occurs, and we'll know about it at our chapter meetings when things get announced and stuff like that. So
Now,
that'll work.
in some sense, it's my opinion that this item doesn't actually even belong on our agenda, because the state law delegates the exclusive voting authority and selection of an alternate to the board president. This board, my recollection and understanding of state law is that this board can't actually tell the board president who the alternate's going to be.
It was just on the agenda already. I mean, I had that same comment. This is straightforward. So we really don't have to have it on the agenda every year.
Then we'll take it off.
Yeah, I mean, just because the president's the rep, and that's just the way it works. So I think that's fine.
Our memo says, the board shall appoint one of its members to the alternate district representative.
That's true, but that may be at odds with state law.
I cannot remember from last year about this. I know that we've looked at this before. I think this is what we ended up concluding, but we can certainly, why don't we table this item? I mean, we already know that the board president is the representative. Table the appointment, if any, of an alternate, and I'll take a look at it and see if there's any requirement that we actually take action now.
Sounds good.
When we find out when the LAFCO meeting is, please let me know what you find out before that meeting.
Okay.
And I need your address.
Is there a possibility there's going to be a LAFCO meeting in January before our board meeting?
Well, we're not talking about LAFCO, we're talking about the...
Then it's
a special
election committee. Do we know if there's a possibility, and I think I would recommend rather than tabling it, you go ahead and appoint somebody,
I don't,
because then it's clear in case the president isn't able to attend.
I thought in the past the president would just write a letter at that point. Is that, or that?
That's my recollection from having looked at the law about 16 years ago.
Yeah. I have a recollection that I looked at it more recently, because I think this came up
If you
before.
want to,
And
if you want to have an official alternate, I mean,
so
that feels safer to you.
it feels safer to me because, I mean, certainly you don't want to lose your chance to be represented on the independent selection committee. And nobody can foresee if Matthew's out of the county or sick or something like that. You want to have somebody there. Yeah.
But our two attorneys here do agree that the president may appoint, or does the board do it?
I would recommend the board do it.
All right. Who would like to be the alternate LAFCO?
I was working with them, so.
Well, that's CSDA, not the...
No, I've been working with the people all the time.
You realize that the people who show up at CSDA are not necessarily the board presidents.
Well, Director Lohman having expressed interest and having contact with some of these people, at least, I think it'd be reasonable to appoint him as the alternate.
Okay.
I don't know, do we need a motion?
He's allowed to make motions.
I'll move. That what I just
We'll get all this
said.
worked out.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Jim's going for a record here. All the seconds.
I did all the
All right,
first
we
three.
I think we were voting on my contract with the lack of second.
Do we have any further discussion? Questions? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay.
Can we take a 5-minute break at this point in time? Either just printing out stuff we just sent out to Laughlin today, and I'd like you to read
The
it first.
application. They got-
All right, we'll take a 5-minute break, please.
And does everybody have at their
MOU?
spot at the table a memorandum of understanding between the San Mateo County Resource Conservation District and the Granada Sanitary District?
Where's the version of this with the markup on it?
I don't have it.
Oh, I just assumed
Did I promise to-
that was the ag. The ag.
Say yes, and I will.
I read that whole thing and just assumed it was the ag thing we were
Yeah.
talking about. I didn't actually see it was the resource conservation.
The language is very similar.
So
Well, at first,
I don't know if we're recessed or if we're just frittering away the time until the documents show up.
Well, we're on a 5-minute recess, or until the documents show up.
The ag people didn't do it.
You realize that if he stops the DVD, then when they play it back, it gets played back in 2 parts.
okay, so are we not stopping?
We will not be calling back.
We are now
overwhelmed with
Back in
paper.
Yes, overwhelmed with paper, for lots of numbers. Let's have a staff report.
Okay. I have been working with Martha over the course of the past 3 weeks to respond to some of the public comments we received at the LAFCO meeting, as well as the commissioners' comments. And we began drafting a letter, and this letter killed quite a few brain cells over the course of the past 3 days and a couple late nights trying to get it out.
Does this also respond to the issues in the letter from Half Moon Bay?
It focused on the last LAFCO meeting, really. So, they received a comment letter from the San Mateo County Board of Realtors. They received a comment letter from somebody else, and we talked about responding to them. The realtor letter didn't have, it said things like we're focusing on open space and wetlands, and yet we don't mention the words open space or wetlands in the application except to name the Mid-Penn Open Space District and things like that.
And why do they think we're focusing on?
I have no idea, and that's why I said I didn't want to respond to them, because it gives credence to the claim that we're doing that, because we outlined Parks and Recs programs. So
There was some particle physicist or quantum physicist many years ago that when he was asked to review someone else's paper by a third party, he looked at it and he responded to the third party, "That's not even wrong."
well, that's what this is. I didn't know what to do with it, so I just checked. So the result of that is this 3-page letter you see here, which responds to the comments. What I did was I took the projects that are listed in the application, and I put more beef to the description of them, and talked about hardscaping and things like that. I narrowed what our partnering efforts would be with the city of Half Moon Bay if this comes to fruition, and also with the school district, so it wasn't quite so generic. And then I prepared these 2 budgets that I handed out, and they're summarized here. So what several of the commissioners wanted to see, and where, Martha Poyatos guided me, is they wanted to see what the budget would look like if we didn't add Parks and Rec services for the last 5 years, versus what it would look like if we did and subsequently shifted some property tax allocation from the sewer district to the Parks and Recreation District. So that little table on the bottom of page 2 shows us starting at $402 annual sewer service, I'm still in the letter, annual sewer service charge. So with the sewer service charge, if I keep it at $402 for the next 5 years, our reserves stay at $3.4 million. So I wanted to do an apples-to-apples comparison, so when I put the Parks and Recs side and I started allocating $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 in property tax to the Parks and Rec side, we would have to increase our sewer service charge by this much in order to maintain our district reserve that's the same as the baseline budget.
So
hopefully that's understandable.
Less than 25% increase.
Right.
Now, wouldn't it have been potentially useful to, in some low-key, polite way, point out that even with that increase, we would still have the lowest sewer service charge on the coast side?
I tried to do that, and I was trying to do that, Leonard, but literally, as you saw, this was deadline driven. I was up till 1 in the morning drafting this 2 nights, and up till the time I had to climb on the plane to get it to Martha. So that's how. So I couldn't get everything in, so I actually almost missed my flight because of this.
Well, during the discussion at the meeting, maybe you should point that out.
Yeah, and I think I can. And I've already started kind of preparing remarks for that meeting. So, then what I tried to do at the end of this, at the end of the letter is I think part of this process is we're being to some extent reactive to public comments, and I wanted to take over the dialogue again and, basically say, you could throw, darts at this thing, but this proposal brings needed funding and needed Parks and Rec services and a governmental agency to the coast side where it's been sorely lacking. And I think that's the narrative we have to put forth. So,
But essentially these, another way to look at it though, is these are more or less the worst case scenario situation, because there may not necessarily even be rate raises, or for sure. Is this
I
the,
can't call it worst case, because worst case I would divert every dollar
Yeah.
of property tax over to Parks and Recs. But even if I did that, it'd probably only be $600 sewer service charge.
so if this was a scenario analysis, this is most likely in terms of it's not?
Right.
Okay.
This is a reasonable scenario.
It's a reasonable thing, and what Martha wanted me to do was to show people that, if we do this diversion of property tax funds, that sewer rates may go up. So,
Okay.
everyone knows the rules and, now vote accordingly. I mean, an $80 increase or whatever the number is, my cable bill's $200 a month now. So.
Say what? Now, a few years ago, I checked with Half Moon Bay. They charge based on usage. I talked to somebody in Public Works there, and their sewer charges are based on usage, which ours are not. But they have a minimum, and if I recall, their minimum at that time was greater than our fixed charge, and they don't put any subsidy into it at all. And what I computed at that time was that if we shifted all of our property tax away from subsidizing the sewer service charge, our sewer service charge would be slightly lower than Half Moon Bay's. And I think I recently was told that Montera has diverted more of their property tax from subsidizing sewer service charges to the water side of their operation. And so their sewer service charges are probably still somewhat higher. I have no idea how much higher, but somewhat higher than Half Moon Bay's. So, the bottom line is, even if we were to divert all of it, or repurpose, let's say, if we were to repurpose all of our property tax to Parks and Rec, our sewer service charge would still be the lowest on the coast side.
Yeah, and I'm going to have Delia get those rates because it's good.
Make sure she gets both the
Right, the
minimum charge and they actually have at their fingertips the average residential charge. And the average is way higher than the minimum.
Yeah, I mean, that's just evidence to put out there. I mean, people say, oh, we're looking at a 25% increase, but everything has to be put in context.
I'd kind of forgotten this from 2004, but it's resurfaced again. I was watching part of one of the Half Moon Bay City Council meetings, I guess the one where they pulled the letter off of consent and then rewrote it upside down. But it seems that Half Moon Bay Council's concern then and now is that if we shift the property tax, we might reduce funding and make things harder at SAM. And so I think that we need to make the point that that won't happen, and we will continue the same amount of money by raising sewer service charges, and if that fails a Prop 218, then we simply will back off on how much we're spending on Parks and Rec, because the critical requirement is we have to maintain the sewer side of things.
Right, and Alan Alfano is a Half Moon Bay City Council member. He also sits on the LAFCO Commission, and he sent me an email, an email, asking, saying I'd like to see the budget comparison, I'd like to see what Leonard's talking about, will we have sufficient funding? At the end of the day, we're in the same spot everybody's in. If Half Moon Bay went and did a Prop 218 and it failed, they would have to start taking some of their property tax money if they made it a priority to, help fund sewer projects if that was a priority. So we're in the same boat as every district in every city, really, that gets property tax. So. And you're exactly right. The board, I think, then would say, if we can't fund it, we'll have to take the property tax back onto the sewer side. So.
Does it enter into the discussions, the thing about the possibility of the state taking our property tax, in which case there's going to be a 33% increase in your tax overnight?
Yeah, I don't touch on that.
Has that found any traction?
Because
so we don't.
that's, that could come off as conspiracy theory sounding.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, it's obviously possible, certainly, and they've been eyeing it, and they want property tax to be used, and I don't know if it came through, David. There's a thing called governmental entities, and things like Parks and Recreation District, they're not sewer service charge driven. So if we need more money on the sewer side, we can raise our sewer service rates. If we need money on the park side, there's no rate structure. So state legislature wants to use property tax for things like parks and recreation, and they want to not use it for things like sewer service or water service or things
Which they
like
refer
that.
to as enterprise functions. An enterprise function is one that there's an identified service that the entity can charge for. And that's most commonly sewer and water, but I'm sure there's others.
Right. So I continue to hear stuff about lack of a specific project, which is continues to be a difficult thing to answer. I actually went today and looked at the plan for services. So LAFCO has to stipulate that we have to show them what our plan for services is. It doesn't say anything about defining projects, and as I sent an email today to Martha, it struck me that in my Rancho Santa Fe district, we gained underground utilities powers. And as part of that application, we listed 8 potential projects because we weren't a utility district yet, so we couldn't do it. And that went through San Diego LAFCO, and they passed that. So it's not like we're without precedence in this thing. So.
I mean, it looks like we keep talking 4 projects right off the top. And
right.
We don't have any intentions of buying land at this point, so we don't have any monster $1 million projects.
But
all our projects are right here. We keep saying.
What's interesting about
it's
it,
like they're projects.
at the end of the day, I was almost saying, you know what, we should have just picked 5 projects and said we're doing them, because it's not binding. Unless they made it a condition,
But
I guess.
I think that there's substantial legal issues with identifying any land that we might be interested in at some point in the future.
Well, absolutely. There's
Something about inverse
There's legal issues with us discussing parks
But
and projects at a sewer district.
inverse condemnation.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah. Right.
Okay, so we really can't, even if we did have some specific parcels in mind, we can't publicly identify them before we've discussed it with the property owner.
So the other issue that came up was this issue of consolidation, which keeps swirling about this thing, and just when I think we've put it to bed, it raises its ugly head. So Martha was asking me to get in contact with Montera and send them a letter or appoint an ad hoc committee or something, some kind of contact to explore consolidation. And I told her, I said, well, the reality is this application isn't about consolidation. It's about Parks and Rec. And she pushed pretty hard for it. And I said, at the end, I said, I don't feel comfortable putting something like that in a letter that I haven't talked to the board about, because they may just say, no, we're not going to look at it, and we want this thing to go on its own merit. Or they may say, we'll certainly have discussions with Montera.
Well, prior to the most recent election, I can tell you pretty definitively how many Montera directors were interested in talking about consolidation. And that is precisely one of the 5.
Well, I mean, if that's, I don't mind talking to them. Obviously we can't force Montera into consolidation, but and it's come up, in talking to all the reps we've talked to, it keeps popping up. And like you said, if the answer as part of the application to Martha is we will, form a committee to talk to Montera, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
That's not, if it looks like people are going to fight on that issue or something, it is, to some, I don't want to say the word irrelevant, it is irrelevant to this application. But if that's like
but it becomes relevant
a philosophy that they want to include, that's no problem.
And continuing on that, I think we need to very clearly and firmly make the case that this is dragged on and dragged on and dragged on. This doesn't really originate with my memo from July 2000. This has dragged on since 1994, when a coastside-wide Parks and Rec CSD was on the ballot and passed in Granada and failed in Montera. And so the point that I think we really, really need to make is that this does not preclude consolidation at any point in the future. It probably makes it easier, but this shouldn't be held up any longer based on some blue sky concept of consolidation. And, we can parallel the discussions, but this needs to move forward because the community has waited way too long. I was almost going to say we've waited long enough. No, it's been way too long. 19 years since the last serious attempt to do this. And we need to get it done already instead of being told, oh, wait for this, wait for that, wait for something else, now do this, now do that. We're tired of them dreaming up the next thing we have to do and the next thing we have to wait for.
Right, so that being said, is there other sentiment?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I agree with Rick in terms of, I think the ad hoc committee or the dialogue, to me, Granada, this area needs parks, it's proven, but I would say, Moss Beach, Montera, with their problems, they may even need it more in terms of a body that's dedicated to that. So I think that just the conversation, the dialogue is going to, help the whole coast in terms of the longer term, whatever ends up evolving. They do have a need for us. So I think that putting our heads together, I think that it creates synergies in terms of ideas, and then also, longer term in terms of support or whatever happens. So I think it's definitely, it's anything that would happen would take years in terms of a tiered type of strategy to get everything the same page. So really, I think, really we just benefit from any type of dialogue that we get. And obviously, we can't control how they react to it, but I think,
we make the effort.
Yeah, formally make an effort, through ad hoc committee, whatever. I would like to be a part of that and be involved and, do whatever we can to
something David just said reminded me that you also need to point out that there are so many technical and legal issues involved in consolidation that once any serious talks on that start, it's going to take years to work it out, and this can't wait years.
I think that's a gentler way to say it.
Obviously, is there, and maybe that's what LAFCO is alluding to a little bit, is there a way to build that into the design of it in terms of, so that CSD could get powers, within a year, whatever, and then a long-term 5 or 10 year plan in terms of where some type of consolidation would take place with, say, Montera, in terms of, whatever they're looking for, that the CSD could come ahead of time, and then any talks about this consolidation could be.
But it's not appropriate to legally tie them together because we don't know where Montera is on this, and we can't say, well, if you approve this, we'll consolidate with Montera, because Montera very likely is going to say, forget it.
Yeah. And I don't think it's going to that level. I think LAFCO just wants to know, are you willing to sit down and talk about this? Because part of their mission is provision of efficient government services, and they have to look at that. So I just told them, I just didn't feel comfortable saying it's a policy decision, so I'm not going to go and put in a letter, we'll do this. And,
Okay, this letter is submitted, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we can't add that in now.
Well, I talked about consolidation a little bit, and I told Martha, I said, I'm going to go to my board, and when I come to the LAFCO meeting on Wednesday, I'll have a report for you that I can say, I talked to the board, they're in favor of an ad hoc, forming an ad hoc committee to go talk to Montera, about joint steps to consolidation or whatever it may be, efficiencies in government, that kind of thing.
Now,
Everybody good with that?
Yeah, and here's kind of the way I look at it. If GSD is successful in becoming a CSD, a couple years out, Montera is going to want to either do the same thing because they do have a need for parks, or they're going to want to consolidate through and leverage this CSD. So really, if we could put our heads together and fast forward the future as much as we can to kind of run that scenario of a CSD in existence and then them either creating their own or jumping on board and consolidating. I think that's kind of where, it's tough you can't predict the future, but if we could play with some of those variables, I think that's where there could be
starts a dialogue.
Yeah.
Maybe it moves it forward or finds out that there's no...
Yeah.
Montera very likely does want to get into the parks business, but I'm fairly certain that they've been hanging back, waiting to see how this goes. And because I'm fairly certain of that, that also kind of strongly implies that they're not interested in consolidation.
All we can do is
We don't need to
do
think
our
about
side,
that.
form our
Yeah.
committee.
And-
If we're rebuffed at the door and
Do
there's
you-
no date.
Do you know when this consolidation thing popped up again most recently? Was it after the election?
Yesterday?
Okay, let me tell you why it popped up, all right?
Leonard, do we want,
No.
All of
let's not go down there, right? We don't want to.
well,
So it's
Keep bringing the issue
It's
up.
popped up. Like I said, it's popped up throughout this process.
Yes.
It's popped up for the past 8 years since we ended the last process. So
No,
it never seems to go.
this actually started in 1996, and it cost the LAFCO executive director his job. They fired him over this because of intense political pressure, because he tried to force a consolidation of GSD and MSD in 1996. The letters are in our files here. And he based his claim of cost savings on information that he hadn't bothered to check into. He assumed that we would save a general manager. The only problem is that Granada didn't have a general manager. So much for the $40,000 a year he claimed in savings from eliminating one of the general managers.
Do we know if LAFCO has done consolidations within the past 5 years? I mean, has there
Yes,
been, which ones have, what examples do we have?
They've been on a bent to consolidate out of existence all of the small districts. In fact, it is so bad that one of the little water districts ended up getting sold to a private water company, which is exactly the wrong direction to go if you look at Montera taking the private water company public.
But the only specific consolidation I know of is the 2 fire districts. There may be others.
Well,
that's a lot.
They don't have...
10 years ago, there were 25 special districts in San Mateo County. There are now 22.
So there's been a few, but they generally don't leap into that because it's a political firestorm, and they've got enough on their plate without that, So, Matthew, would you like to appoint an ad hoc committee, or is the board? I can't remember.
I'd like to see some hands.
Either way.
Do we need to do it now, or is it just be?
Are we gonna-
Well, I'd rather have it in my
Say we
pocket.
have one.
Yeah.
Do you feel that this is strong enough that LAFCO may condition it in, that we have to?
I don't get that vibe, but you know how it goes when I'm talking to the staff level. When it goes to the commission, at the last LAFCO meeting, the only person who touched on it was Don Horsley, and even that wasn't like...
And we've talked.
Well, he specifically said, though, that he wouldn't condition it.
Right. Oh, he did. Okay.
I think it's very problematic to condition
It would
it.
not.
Very problematic legally to.
Right. I'd be shocked if they did it that way. I really would be. So.
But if we were willing to do it, there certainly would encourage it. He's trying to find a little hanging fruit here.
Oh, absolutely.
For consolidation.
And I told Martha
Right.
that. I kind of the same thing David said is, we've talked about it. This is a stepping stone approach. Are we hitting the home run here and getting parks and recs all the way from the Half Moon Bay up to Montera? No, but we're taking another chunk out of the thing. So. All right.
Okay, so that being the status, as far as we know with LAFCO, you feel we should have this ad hoc committee now?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful. Yes. Yeah.
See Jim.
Well,
It doesn't hurt, yeah.
since I've already, there's really, really good reasons for not talking about it publicly, and so I haven't. But I have had irregular discussions with some of the Montera directors on and off for years about consolidation. So I think that I really need to be on the committee because, I have the head start on that.
I guess there is no limit on numbers of committees that one person can be on, like every committee. I guess.
Well, for the first 2 years of my term on this board, I was in fact on every committee. Given that, well, I can't take 3 of us.
I can't, you're going to take 2? Fine, I'll step back.
Because then every meeting would have to be noticed public meeting, which is
I'll step back then.
impractical.
No, I didn't realize that. I'll step back.
Who's the other?
I will withdraw.
I'd be willing to do it. If it's,
Anyway. Okay.
Well,
Good point.
I think I'm going to say, Rick, did you want to do this?
Yeah, I'd volunteer too.
And David, this is nothing toward you, it's just a matter of people that have known each other
Yeah,
a long time. And
Yeah.
I know you're trying to step in, but
Yeah.
this is something that a personal contacts count for a lot.
okay, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's Rick and Leonard?
Rick and Jim, I was trying to get Jim on because Jim's been,
Oh, you were trying to get Jim on?
No, well,
I was nominating Jim earlier.
Oh, I didn't know there were nominations. Well, Jim just stepped back. Want to step forward?
well, Leonard wants to be on the, you're on, you want to
Well, it could be the two of us.
That's fine. Yeah, like this. Yes.
Sorry, folks.
We can do this. Okay. We can do this.
I'm not ready for those finalists.
Okay.
It is, it's fine. All right. Rick and Jim.
Yeah.
Anything else on this agenda item?
Well, yes, if you're talking about the entire agenda item, several parts.
Now we
Oh,
just give me
the
my,
resource conservation.
Right.
In terms of projects, someone told me that we should, in fact, identify more projects. I don't agree, but I'll just toss it out here in case other people want to argue it. But I think that we do need to add one topic here that isn't really covered or covered well enough in the letter. And that is, now when we first started this in, 2004, when we started seriously, the intent at that time of the board, we never, took a vote on it, but the clear intent of the board was that if we did any active rec stuff, it would be done by contracting with Half Moon Bay's Parks and Rec Department, because they had a recreation director. Now that they farm it out to the city of San Carlos, that's a little more difficult. But I think that we should explicitly say that, and this is subject to the rest of the board agreeing with me on this, my suggestion to the board is that we indicate to LAFCO that if we do active rec, that we're not going to go out and hire significant staff to do that. We would look to either contract it out to the same place that Half Moon Bay is, or preferably work with Half Moon Bay to bring back their in-house department, and then we would contract it out to their in-house department.
And I've actually also, I have two answers to that. One is, I've talked about that on the staff level with the guys from Half Moon Bay, and, it's in constant flux. And I guess my second comment is, you have no idea what any future board will do regarding, they may say, I'm going to take all $470,000 in property tax and hire a staff. We have no idea.
Sure, but I think that you could say the current inclination of this board is that direction.
Well, to me, there's two levels. One is, let's say we created some recreational fields. Okay, we're creating fields. We're not running a recreation department. We're not organizing soccer teams. We don't have to create events. I envisioned us as providing an infrastructure more fields, more trails, more whatever is beautifying, but I don't think we're responsible for running, Sunday morning, Tai Chi events in the middle of the.
I was going to say yoga.
But that's the point I'm making, Rick. Yeah, your current board isn't saying that.
Yeah.
But the board 2 years from now, and the board 2 years
do
from
whatever.
now, like I said at the LAFCO meeting, this board might have a bunch of soccer moms on it in 5 years, we don't know, and the current inclination of the board, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter.
Is there a way, then there's no way to put restrictive language in there so that, to address some of those concerns and, also.
Well, not now, certainly.
Yeah.
No.
But so you really don't think that there's any value in saying that the mindset of the current board, assuming you guys agree with me, and I'm not hearing any disagreements, is that for active rec we would look to farm it out either to Half Moon Bay or to hopefully the same outside.
I don't know why that would resonate with the LAFCO commissioners.
Well, because some people think this.
You're going to enjoy and do it on the cheap?
Because some people think this is empire building, and if we point out that our intent is, do it in some more practical way, and that's somehow a consolidation, right?
Well, yeah, it may land. Quite honestly, I just don't,
It seems like we have a pretty straight, simple message.
And the
The
letter,
community needs parks, we're going to
provide them, and however the community, because we keep saying, once we become a Parks and Rec district, the community is going to be speaking to us about parks and recreation, and we'll find out what they want.
And the one thing that I'll predict, and I've been saying this for a while, but I'll make a much clearer prediction now, is after we're a CSD with Parks Authority, we'll have a lot more people in the audience at the meetings.
Absolutely.
and the letter that's just been submitted does raise the issue of partnering opportunities with the city of Half Moon Bay, and it's sort of very general, but it's about as specific as we can get given the current situation and where the city is and where we are. And so I don't think we need to emphasize it anymore.
Yeah, and like I said, certainly I've talked to them at staff level, so they know we're interested. Did you know they pay San Carlos something like nothing, $17,000 a year?
Well, no wonder they did it.
Well, no, I guess they get what the San Carlos gets is revenue from the programs they're on, things like that. So that's.
Is that how that works?
So we have another item on that one, which is the memorandum of understanding with the Resource Conservation District.
So at the LAFCO meeting, the subject of the Resource Conservation District came up, and also in talking with the Executive Officer Martha Poyatos. Afterwards, she indicated that she thought that it was an important issue that we try to address before the LAFCO meeting. So working with Chuck, we had Ryan Maroney from our office contact Kellex Nelson, who is the Executive Director of RCD, and he provided her with a draft memorandum of understanding, and then we've gotten comments back from her, which were mostly about the purposes of the RCD. She just clarified those because she's more familiar with how they like to word it. And so what you have before you is a proposed memorandum of understanding between the San Mateo County Resource Conservation District and the Granada Sanitary District that has been worked out from both staff levels now. And what we want to do is have your board approve it. The RCD board does not meet until after the LAFCO meeting, but we have at least advanced it to the stage that their executive officer, director would support it because it's language that she has vetted. It really contains two primary things. One is that each fiscal year we would consult with RCD and vote to establish a resource management or conservation practices budget related to any park development that we were going to do or trail development, so that we would basically contract with them. for services that they generally provide to all agencies.
I still don't necessarily know what this is saying. You're going to have to elaborate on this.
You want me to? You say? It's basically, the way the RCD operates is they contract with agencies throughout the county to provide services, consultant-type services. It's, here's how you can do your trail better in a way to prevent erosion, in a way to avoid harming any endangered plants, the whole spectrum of resource conservation.
So things that this board is very likely to want done anyway.
Yes.
And they do charge for their consulting
Yes, they do
fees?
charge.
So, yeah, okay.
They want to, I mean, this is only going to come into play once we are developing something, which, is not imminent, I guess I would say, at least not anything huge. But, I mean, so let's say we wanted to adopt a trail, or develop a trail or a tot lot or something like that within the next year or two, assuming this all goes through. At the beginning of the fiscal year when we were going to develop it, we would consult with them, establish a budget, contract with them, and they would provide us some advice as to how to best develop that tot lot in a manner that conserves resources the best. That's what they do. And so that's, it's not saying how much the budget's going to be, that's within our discretion.
I would like to have the flexibility to get competitive bid to make sure that what they're saying the cost would be is reasonable. And
they don't do the development of the resource conservation. They don't say, okay, you want to make sure there's less erosion? We'll do that for you. They just tell you what are the best management practices today.
So are we talking really minimal costs to RCD?
And you have discretion as to what the budget is. It's just they want you to consult with them.
Okay, but when you read this out loud, you left out the word appropriation on the third line of item 2. And that word appropriation actually significantly changes the character of it from the way you read it.
So are you concerned about the word appropriation?
Well, actually, my biggest concern is the very last word in paragraph 3, but we'll get to that.
Does do you believe this language gives us the flexibility that Leonard was talking about? And it reads to me like it commits us to do this every fiscal year, whether we have something in the works or not.
To identify and develop beneficial projects on lands acquired or operated. So in any year in which we are acquiring or going to operate land, I'd say it would only really come up in terms of a change of operation. I mean, the first time we develop an operation plan, we would consult with them. And I mean, I'll just say that this is what they do in our community, and I think we learned that a number of LAFCO commissioners have, in their careers, been involved with the RCD and support the RCD.
Sure.
So that's one of the reasons that's important to work with them. So we were asked to do this. There's nothing mandatory, right?
No.
You could establish a budget of 0.
Right, it's MOU.
Right.
It's on the contract.
Well, this is a contract to consult.
Yeah, okay.
But that ultimately, there's no binding budget amount that has to be established.
All right, can you address the very last word in paragraph 3, activities? I can understand reduction in property taxes due to GSD acquisitions or activities. I don't understand what that might be referring to.
Well, that's a good question, and Ryan, if you have any thoughts about this, because you're the one that talked to Kellex, well, let me know.
I don't have any, I can't think of anything either.
And I
But
would,
in the event that it did affect their property tax base,
but I would agree with Larry also that it could be a slippery slope in terms of they could make a case for whatever reason that some activity, offset their revenue potential, whereas just due to acquisitions is a little bit more precise in terms of Yeah.
I mean, that was the concern they brought up at the RCD meeting that Gail and I went to. Wow, how long ago was that? Was that a year ago? They were totally focused on property tax due to us acquiring property and taking it off of their tax roll. So now to see this activities thrown in there without anybody here knowing what it means, I'm concerned about that.
Anybody think of an activity that would reduce their taxes?
The only thing I could possibly think of, and this is not even worth talking about, it's such a stress, is we gained another power as a CSD and someone decided to give us property tax allocation.
Well, that'd be a new MOU after a new application to LAFCO.
Well, yeah, no one's giving away property tax, so I can't.
We've kind of determined that the property taxes we're talking about are minimal.
And they're even more minimal since I last reported.
So, I mean, we're arguing a point that, to me, financially, risk to the district is inconsequential at the risk
What was
of...
the estimate of $5 million property with
And that was on the basis of our value. I found out after the last meeting that their district is gigantic, so they get a very small piece of property tax from a much larger.
Which means the amount is going to be even smaller. Right.
So I calculated if we bought a $5 million parcel, it would cost them, I forget what the number is, $100 or something a year in property tax.
I mean, there's ways of, looking at fine little details and arguing for the next hour over a word, or if the ramifications is $20,
Right.
I mean, I'll chip in. Just because this is a really serious district.
Put that in.
The RCD is really important, like MROSD and like the Farm Bureau was. And our obvious goal is to work honestly with these groups with the full intention, doing this thing. But these are serious people, and having them on our side for a couple bucks is a great asset. I mean, I'm surprised it's this good. Not surprised, but I'm happy that we can, do a letter of understanding that's this clear and simple and the ramifications to the district are so minimal.
It doesn't really bind us to anything. It says that we'll consult on setting a budget, or we'll consult on...
Even the property tax part, just consult with and thereafter vote to establish a lump sum payment.
Right.
But it doesn't say what the amount of payment is. So, and I want to make sure we're all clear that it's reductions in property taxes due to blah, blah, blah activities. So it's not that if some activity we did reduced their revenue. It's if some activity we did somehow reduce their property tax, which, as somebody asked this question, it's really hard to think about. I was trying to think of, there are property tax consequences of certain types of leaseholds, where a governmental agency owns some property and leases to a private agency, and then all of a sudden it's taxable somehow.
Oh, so if we got like an open space easement or a view easement over some private property, that might reduce the value of the property?
Well, that's not what the example I was given.
But like Rick said, first of all, we can't even think of an activity.
Right.
Second of all, even if we did, I can't imagine having a... I'd recommend, I don't know what you're looking for. Are you looking for approval in
I would like to approve this language, because what I want to do with it, and we talked a little bit to Martha about this, is to provide some conditions of approval ourselves, because we know there are certain conditions of approval that are going to be added to our approval if we get it. And one is going to be that we have a memorandum of understanding with RCD in language similar in content and form to this, and attach it, or a summary of it, whichever Martha wants. And since we have language that their staff has approved, it will just be so much simpler if we can say, we've worked this out with the staff of RCD, they got to take it to their board, but our board has approved it.
Okay, I'm convinced. I move we approve the memorandum of understanding between the San Mateo County Resource Conservation District and Granada Sanitary District.
I'd be happy to second.
Any additional discussion?
I think we've had enough.
I think so. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So
Can't even speak to that.
I want to just add two things after that, and one is about the fact that we already have the MOU that's already been approved by the board for agriculture for the Farm Bureau. So I'm going to be preparing that same little blurb for a condition of approval to say, because the Farm Bureau hasn't signed that yet and won't sign it until January, but in language that is similar in content.
Is that because they don't meet until then?
Right.
Okay.
The third thing is the Half Moon Bay agreement, which we don't have them on board to really any specific language. And what we're concerned about is that at the LAFCO meeting, this turns into some big discussion about that, and we haven't reached any agreement. So we have some draft language that it's along the lines of what the board has already authorized us to do, which is basically say, we're going to give, if we take 20% of our property tax and use it in our budget for our Parks and Rec, we're going to give 20% of that property tax for the area that's in Half Moon Bay, and we're going to give that to them for their use for Parks and Rec, or I think we would be Parks and Rec. I want to have that same thing. I want to give to Martha condition of approval, because we know that there's going to be an imposed condition of approval that says provide some sort of property tax, transfer
Well,
to
I thought we already agreed to all of that.
We have, in my view, from what I've heard here. I just wanted the board not to be surprised that when they see that, so I want to make sure that's going to be okay, because we want to take care of those 3 conditions of approval we know are going to be on there, and not have it just loose, open-ended conversation about it, something we can say, this is what we have proposed, we have approved it, it's ready. LAFCO commissioners, if you adopt that, it's taken care of. If you want to spend 2 hours hearing from Half Moon Bay and hearing from us and trying to draft the agreement, then we'll have another continuance, is what I would predict. So
I think we need to consider an alternative approach toward the fairness on the property tax issue. We've been focused on transferring that amount of money to the city of Half Moon Bay. This might not go over that well with the people in that overlap territory, and Chuck and I spoke.
Let me stop you here, because we already discussed this. So we talked about a fair way maybe to rather than send money over to Half Moon Bay, would be to keep the people in that overlap area at, I'll use my example on my budget, at the $402 sewer service charge, and as it increased for the people up here who are getting park services, they would bear the burden, not the people in the overlap area. That we discussed that with Martha, and she doesn't like that for a couple of reasons, which Jonathan will enumerate.
well, I mean, part of it is...
Well, she understood it better than I did, so...
Well, in her mind, and this was actually my first reaction to it as well, is that the object here is to use the property tax for Parks and Rec services. If you use it to reduce the sewer service charges in Half Moon Bay, you're using it for sewer purposes.
Okay.
And so we would not get a recommendation for approval of that. I mean, we've had that conversation with Martha. We tried it.
So she's less concerned with the unfairness, if you will, in the overlap area, more concerned with broader state policy of using property tax for Parks and Rec type services.
So I understand.
And I talked with Alex at Half Moon Day today about that, and he was fine either way. So
the only reason I even put it on the table for discussion is the toughest votes for the reorg are going to be in that overlap territory, and if we actually say that the sewer service charges aren't going to go up, it'd be easier to get their votes.
Right.
But if it's not going to fly at LAFCO, then that's the end of the discussion.
Do you have an issue with me sending out that agreement to Alex and also to Martha? I think we should have her look at it. So
has this board seen the language of it? I don't recall. Yeah, I would like to see the language of the
I'll
agreement
send it out, yes.
before it's sent
All right, well,
to...
we've got to, I'll send that out tonight, but if you're going to turn that around, we got to turn it around tomorrow, because, you know, we are hurtling on a
So can,
timeframe.
I would like to go forward from this meeting with the understanding that we can submit something to Martha that is along the line, the language, you know, in addition to the normal boilerplate, is basically what we've always talked about, and it's in our application, it's in everything else that we've ever submitted on this, that says we're going to transfer some of the property tax to Half Moon Bay, you know, based on a proportional
And so,
amount.
so the principle.
That's all it says.
Right, so the overlap area provides 18.2% of our property tax. So if we take $100,000 and send it over to the Parks and Rec side, we're going to send Half Moon Bay $18,200. So and the agreement is actually fantastically simple. It's Jonathan, if he drafted it, actually.
well, having been a math major, I want to see...
You're right.
I want to see the language of how it's computed.
Yeah, so I'll send that to you tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm happy for each individual board member to give Chuck any feedback, because we can tweak that language a little bit, but I would like to go forward to be able to get something to Martha so she can have something at the meeting that says, this is going
And
to be the
hopefully
conditions of approval.
condition it in substantial form,
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah, keep in mind that I actually get paid to look at things and figure out what could go wrong that nobody else has thought of. So,
Do you still need like a concept approval tonight?
I think that would be good.
And I still move based
Second.
on that proportional, but I think we've done that. It's been our discussion all along, and that's the plan. So.
I certainly agree.
I agree as well.
okay, so moved and seconded.
Who seconded?
Me.
Oh, we need a vote.
Why I was looking at the board president.
Oh, I didn't know it was a resolution or whatever. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
High pressure jobs get to you, don't they?
Yeah. This is just killing me.
That's it.
Okay, that's it from us, Matthew.
All right, that was 6C, further directions.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, the meat there was good.
Agenda item 7, consideration of report and ongoing issues by district's sewer authority mid-coastside reps. Have we had 2 meetings since our last time?
I have reported on the October 17th, but we didn't have the minutes, we only had the agenda, so they're just providing.
Right.
Well, maybe we'll tag team this because there's at least one thing that I can think of. The interim general manager presented, let's see, is that on this agenda? Yeah, that was discuss capital replacement planning properties. The SAM board had previously agreed to a multi-year capital improvement program worked out by the engineer, and the big ticket item there was...
And agreed to send it out to the member agencies. for
True, yes,
consideration.
that is correct, yes. Although never got actually sent out to the member agencies, did it?
No, we hammered it enough at a staff level.
Yeah, so the big ticket item in that CIP proposed by the engineer was to relocate the electrical equipment to higher ground, because if the plant floods and the electrical equipment is pretty much at the lowest end of the plant, if the electrical equipment floods, then we basically lose the plant, and that's probably not out of bounds to call that a catastrophe. So moving the generator building in particular, the SAM plant has a backup generator that I think I computed out once is big enough to power El Granada. Heck, it's got a V12 diesel. It's like a 400 or 450 kW generator. When I had a backup generator, it was 5 kW, and it was loafing when I used it. So moving the generator didn't make sense, so then we got into, okay, let's just build a new building and buy a new generator for it. But the interim general manager, who is, in fact, an engineer, did a big analysis and presented a slideshow to the board at the last board meeting, basically looking at, for each item, what is the likelihood of it failing and what is the consequence of it failing. And while the consequence of the electrical equipment flooding is very high, the likelihood is vanishingly small. There's a berm around the plant, so basically it would have to be a tsunami, because the reason the plant almost flooded back in '97 was it didn't have the hydraulic capacity to get the stormwater through there. It does now. It's got a hydraulic capacity of 15.5 million gallons a day, which is bigger than the '97 storm flow.
And I'll also point out that the peer review of that report by Kennedy Jenks pointed out that with the MCCs, it's a control roof in the electrical building. They would fail anyway, so moving the building wouldn't help. So.
Some of the electrical equipment can't be moved without picking up half the plant and moving it. So basically, the interim general manager is proposing a significant change in the priorities of the capital improvement program, and so the SAM board, I guess, will be working on that, and probably the agency managers are going to be heavily involved in that also.
And we actually met on that this morning, and kind of as an overlay to your report, what Vivian, the SAM general
interim general manager.
Thank you. Kind of echoed what I had said. When you look through the CIP thing, it's a lot of it's maintenance projects. It's not true improvement projects. It's maintaining stuff that should have been done, and they've got a whole host of issues there with that kind of stuff. So we're, that $2 million electrical project with DOA when it hit the member agency. So we're all committed to this. And we're actually planning to do a plant walkthrough in January. Kind of the same thing we did with the IPS, where we get myself, a couple engineers, and Vivian, and we kind of say, okay, what's the likelihood of this failing? And start going through failure scenarios and things like that, and what are solutions. So.
Now, she also talked about something, I'd never heard the term before, and now I'm trying to remember what the term was. I think she called it firm capacity.
Yeah.
And what that is the Regional Water Quality Board wants to see firm capacity, meaning that if we have a pump station with 4 pumps, we have to be able to process all of the maximum flow through that plant if the biggest pump fails. So all the remaining pumps have to be able, without the big one, all the remaining pumps have to have sufficient capacity. And she says, we do not have that at any of the pump stations. And that was kind of news. Matthew and I went on the director's tour of the plant and the various facilities, although it dragged out too long. And so I had to bail before we got to Portola, but I'm fairly familiar with Portola anyway. Among other reasons, because up until a week after I was elected, the GSD board met in the back room there. That was the regular meeting location. And let's see, it was cold, smelly, cramped.
Okay.
Other than that, there was nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
So I urged the rest of the directors to arrange and get the SAM tour. It was kind of focused on the SAM reps, but I think it's valuable for all the directors, and there's no reason why any interested member of the public can't go on the tour, it'd be best if it's consolidated with other people going on the tour.
I was going to say the same thing, urge our newest board members to go take the tour, see what the SAM facilities look like, and you'll have a much better idea of why there are concerns. Yeah.
Well, considering that it took probably somewhere around 3 to 5 years of me ragging on Sam to paint the door at the Portola pump station, yeah, some of this maintenance has been put off for way too long.
Considering we have a CIP that covered that stuff, yeah.
So the other thing I'll report on, and then we'll see if Matthew has any, actually, maybe I want to report on this one too. Yeah, the manager recruitment committee, or whatever it might be called, which I'm on, we had a telephone conference with the search firm, and we've selected 3 of the applicants for the manager position to be interviewed by the board, and I've scheduled a special SAM board meeting to do those interviews. It was January. That's why I'm drawing a blank on the date, for the first Monday in January. And let's hope that we decide at least one of the candidates is a good fit.
Has there been any discussion on that issue? Because we talked a little bit about that today, of keeping the current situation moving forward?
Yes, but not that I'm going to talk about here, because there are 2 SAM directors that are champing at the bit to hire a new general manager.
So that leaves 6 other votes.
That is true.
Because there is, certainly from my point of view, we have a situation now which is working, and working very well, working as well as it's worked in the past 10 years. We've got a manager on board who's very project-oriented, project-driven. We're meeting well with the other managers. I don't know why we'd upset the apple cart.
Actually, I have to correct something you said. It's 5 other votes, not 6.
Okay. Why's that?
There are
They
3.
account for
There are.
2.
Let's not worry about that.
Anyway.
I'll explain it later. Okay.
So, that situation's working really well. I spoke with Tony afterwards, and he likes it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, as far as I'm concerned. That's a SAM board decision, obviously, but from the staff level, I'm telling you, we're doing good things. We're getting good things accomplished. She brings a nice piece of experience to the table. She's even far more experienced than I am in the San Mateo regulatory arena, which is a specialist in and of itself. So,
Well,
from the staff level, those discussions get started. I would hope, I think you'd have broad support from Half Moon Bay too. So.
We'll talk.
Okay.
I agree, but there is one director at least who is adamant that it's a full-time job, and we're not going to hire Vivian full-time.
Because she's not interested in it?
I don't think she wants to do it full-time, and I mean, my position for well over a year has been it's not a full-time job.
So there's cost savings part-time?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah,
but the problem is we have to deal with one of the SAM directors who is just adamant that it's a full-time job. And yet the previous general manager at a board meeting, when I looked at him and I said, how many hours a week do you spend running this, doing this job? He said 20 to 30, right? Rick? Didn't he say 20 to 30?
These are all caveats, because he says doing physical work, but he says that's not a manager's job. Is much bigger than just running the plant. It's all the walking around. And
it sounds like there were some things that he wasn't doing anyways, right? The previous,
I don't want to, let's not talk employment. Okay. But, John Berg 10 years ago did it for 2 days a week. We went a stretch of 8 months where we didn't have one. I mean, I don't think it's a full-time
in that 2 days
job.
a week.
I think what's happening now, that's the most important thing. What's happening now works.
And in John Berg's 2 days a week, we got the Montera 500,000 gallon facility built.
All right, so that's my staff level input.
Okay. So the other thing that I want to mention, then we'll see if there's anything left for Matthew to talk about, is it's the annual weed abatement fiasco on the 7-acre property that Sam bought that runs along Sewer Plant Road, which is extremely environmentally sensitive. When we bought it, we got an environmental report from a very well-respected firm that the executive summary of it is there is almost nothing you can do with that land. But we didn't actually buy it to do anything with it. We bought it to keep it from getting developed and then having that have an adverse impact on the plant with people doing something there and then complaining about the plant operations. It was just better to buy it to make sure that nobody could then go in and complain about what was going on at the plant.
Well, someone who runs 3 plants surrounded by multi-million-dollar homes, goodbye. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Most of them housing lawyers.
And we do in fact have problems with some of the neighbors in the nearby subdivision. But the issue is some of those neighbors want it to be concrete or bare dirt or something, and they don't like the wild nature of the land for one reason or another. And then there's the creek that runs through there that the people derogatorily refer to as the Kehoe Ditch, but it is in fact legally a stream. It meets all of the tests to be a stream. So they variously want things done to that. So we are applying to the city of Half Moon Bay to get a CDP for annual weed abatement, but somebody, I believe our interim general manager, said, let's get a 5-year CIP so we don't have to do this every year. And the city tried to get Sam to use it's actually in here, TRA. I wasn't sure I should name it or not, but since it's in the minutes, they wanted us to use TRA, and TRA has gotten the city in trouble multiple times. So what Vivian didn't know is that the city cannot tell us what consultant to use. CEQA does not allow the permitting agency to direct it to a specific consultant. And I pointed that out at the meeting. So the manager has been directed to get a quote from HT Harvey, it says? I thought it was HT Harvey. And I'm assuming that the quote on that's going to be low because they did the original one and they did the one a few years ago. So they're really familiar with the property. Most likely all they need to do is update one of their previous reports. So it is worth noting that the city tried to steer us to a firm that's gotten them in trouble more than once.
I thought this was because of the expiration of a previous 5-year one.
I don't actually know.
Yeah, well, okay.
Did I leave anything for you to cover?
Well, we could talk about the
How about the last line on the bottom page?
The budget overage. A discussion ensued. Following discussion, no board action was taken. That one?
Oh, I'm looking at where it says the O&M budget for FY 2012-13 has been overexpended by $86,000, so there is no anticipated year-end O&M refund to the member agencies. I brought that at last meeting, but it gets even more interesting when you read the part about the auditors. CPAs stated that engineering costs were over by about $200,000 for the budgeted year. And so the board decided to turn this into an item that will be addressed in January in an ongoing fashion afterwards too.
try to avoid the budget being overspent without the board knowing it until half the fiscal year later.
Don't they get financial statements? How could they? It's got to have a bottom line.
Yeah. But when they don't disperse and, in a timely manner.
I'm expecting, I don't know if it's going to be in the audit or in a cover letter, but there's going to be something, there's almost certainly going to be something rather negative about SAM operations over the last year in the audit. And it has to do with numerous contracts over, well, I shouldn't say contracts, numerous assignments to the engineer that were over the manager's spending authority limit that didn't come to the board. And that is, in fact, why we're over budget. And the auditor is apparently planning on taking a dim view of all of this stuff being given by the manager to the engineering firm without board approval for the significant amounts of money.
That's interesting.
Well, we had a discussion about that too today, because I think the limit's $5,000.
Right.
And it needs to be increased to 15 or something.
Yeah, well, there were apparently a series of...
No chance, I guess, right now.
There were apparently a series of over $20,000 things given to the engineer with, I mean, not only no board approval, no contract. So, yeah, if I was an auditor, I'd write a nasty gram in the audit
And
about
everyone
that.
on the board said, I didn't see any of this in the paperwork I've been going through. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
And yet, I'm still getting beat up over the accusation that I forced out the manager. No, I just...
Okay. Let's move to the consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull any items for discussion? The consent agenda consists of item 8, approval of special and regular meeting minutes for October 17th. Item 9, approval of special and regular meeting minutes for November 21st. Item 10, approval of December 2013 warrants for $135,437.11. Item number 11, approval of November 2013 financial statements. And item number 12, approval of assessment district distribution number 5-13/14 for $89.14.
I have to say that I haven't read this stuff carefully enough.
Okay, Leonard doesn't want to pull anything.
Okay, well, at least 1 point for that one.
Do we have a motion for the consent agenda?
Yes,
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous.
Okay, does Jim have all of the seconds except one for this meeting?
Yeah. It's just been itching to do that. All right, item...
There was one meeting where, I guess it was Rick and I, in one order or the other, every single motion was either made or seconded by one of the two of us.
Okay, item number 13, committee reports. Report on seminars, conferences, or committee meetings. Does anyone have a report?
Well, Midcoast Council, the installation of the newly elected council members was last night, and other than a short period between when David Vespermi was elected and resigned, which I think was like a year, maybe less, this is the first time in quite a long time that there have actually been 7 seated council members. There's just perpetually been a vacancy for interminable amounts of time, and so I think that we actually have a pretty good Midcoast Council now. Although I think that maybe our staff needs to be a little more assertive over the furniture arrangement here, because I think this board needs to authorize our staff to be more assertive because Mid-Coast Council has been kind of persnickety over arranging the furniture to suit them, and, the meeting room is here for us. And so Mid-Coast Council can work with that, they'll work with that. Well, I don't like sitting here with the seam in the table.
That's a table issue, not
Because unless you can bolt the tables together and make them the same height.
You move Matthew to that position now.
Okay.
My edge is even over here.
Yeah, look at that. Both this way and that way.
Drooping here.
We authorized Delia to make them fix it to her liking. How's that?
Works for me.
All right.
I second that.
Item 14, attorney's report.
No report.
Item 15, treasurer's report. Well,
No report.
you can slide. Item 16, GM's report.
Nothing further.
Item 17, administrator's report.
Nothing further.
And I don't see an engineer's report unless you have something,
Yeah,
Chuck.
just whether we're finalizing this year's portion of the 5-year CIP, the sewer line replacement. So John actually got back to me with a proposed schedule, so we'll probably see that in January.
Okay.
I have a question for the manager. There's a property which I think I've previously told you about that some other elected coastside official a couple of years ago told me had connected to the sewer system without a permit. And we need to pursue that. When I looked into county records to see permits for that property, the property itself doesn't even exist. The address is not in the county system. It's apparently been carved out of the bigger property that surrounds it. So there are no permits on file at the county for that property. And yet this other coastside official was adamant that they have connected the sewer system. And if they have,
Do they have an APN?
I'm unclear on that. Can drive by and point to it. I had a real hard time figuring out exactly where it is, but they have an address posted on the building, and that address does not exist in the county system.
So, this is not on the agenda, but it's perfectly proper to bring it up. I'm just thinking that it should be
Yeah,
delved into.
I'll look into it later.
But you will have to tell them which building it is.
Well, when I tried to drive by and figure out which underlying parcel it was, there were a bunch of people out in front, and I thought it would be ill-advised for me to stop and start counting like that. So I just kept driving.
All right.
But this is a particular building that everybody in the area knows about because it looks like it was put up without permits on a 3-day weekend.
Not on the agenda.
All right, I'll look it up.
Okay. Anything else? No. Okay. Let's hope the LAFCO meeting goes well next week, and everyone have great holidays, and we are adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you. Good time.